Hello, my name is John Burris, and I'd like to thank you for visiting me today and watching this short video called Fascia and Energy Part 2. This is the second in a series on how the fascia and energy connect, and I'll be sharing with you some remarkable discoveries that I've made. And I am really excited about this because this is life-changing for you, for me, for the population, for culture, for the planet. This is tremendous amount of information I'll be sharing with you, and I really hope that it changes your life in a great way. So in this second part series, we'll be taking another step after part 1. So if you haven't watched part 1 yet, make sure you do so, and this will just take it to another step forward. So in this video, I will be sharing with you ideas from East and West, both physical anatomy and non-physical anatomy, called metaphysical or esoteric anatomy, and showing you how those two ideas come together and how we're not necessarily just a body of molecules and cells and atoms. We're much more than that. And I'll be showing you why things like yoga are such a better way to move your body than the traditional way of gym workouts and fitness training and strength training. So I'll be sharing with you all that. And I'm hoping you gather a whole new appreciation for anatomy as I have. I've created something called New Anatomy. And a New Anatomy, we dispel myths that are sometimes hundreds and thousands of years old about our own human body. And I'll be sharing you how those new anatomy ideas come to play in our daily life. So let's go ahead here. So in order to take a step back, how did most of us, at least in Western cultures, learn about anatomy? We learn from morgues, from cadavers being cut up for hundreds of years, not actually too far back, because in the mid-centuries, what have you, you weren't allowed to cut up a body. So it wasn't until the last 200 years where doctors would be in the basements of hospitals dissecting dead bodies, and you had grave robbers and they needed more bodies. So most of us learned about anatomy from dissecting of dead tissue, and that's what we're still doing. We're still doing that. In today's world, myself as a body worker and a yoga teacher, anatomy is more alive. It's found in yoga rooms. It's found on massage tables. It's a living anatomy where most of us are taught anatomy that's a dead anatomy that's based on dead tissue and corpses and whatnot. So much of the East has been studying this for hundreds and thousands of years. And so there's a unique concept of a force called qi. It's called life force energy. And the Chinese especially started this 4,000 years ago. And it's a well-known concept outside of Western cultures that the qi flows through the body. It's one of the principles that acupuncture works on. And qi is it's like electricity, but not electricity. It's a force of immense knowledge and energy that travels through the body. And in my work as a body worker and yoga teacher, it travels through the fascia tissue. We'll be talking more about that. So the fascia is the mechanism by which the qi flows through the body. And I'll show you how strength isn't just about muscles and building muscle tissue. Strength comes from the openness of your fascia so the qi is allowed to flow much freer. Like most things, science is also a political factor. Most of us have been taught a scientific anatomy that's often a bully. It wants to suppress natural elements. And so I'll be showing you some of the politics that go about in the anatomy world and how we might want to revisit some of those politics and how much of the scientific world is giving us false information and how it's suppressing our natural abilities. And so we'll share with you some of the politics, as science can often be the bully on the block and suppressing natural ideas. So, for example, for years the scientific community wanted to basically eliminate acupuncture and chiropractic, and it took years of court battles to basically become legitimized because the scientific medical community felt threatened by natural processes and tried to eliminate that. So I'll be sharing with you the politics of science, the politics of anatomy, and how anatomy is much broader than you think it is. So let's first talk about fascia and qi. So fascia is like the wrapping in an orange, the white stuff that contains everything, that keeps everything together. Where our body is filled with this three-dimensional fascia network that travels everywhere in the body. And in the energy of fascia, it's the fascia that carries the chi, the life force energy through it. That's the mechanism. So for example, this is your spine here. The fascia is what connects it all together. And it's a wrapping. And if you haven't watched my video on fascia, it might give you a refresher course. So for example, inside the bones here, we have the central nervous system. Well, it's not continuous. They're made up of small little individual nerves. There's a gap between them called a synapse. So the spinal nerves themselves are not continuous. And even the bones aren't continuous. There's spaces between them. And what is continuous is this layer of fascia that travels through everything and connects everything. It's actually your fascia that connects it all together. So we talk about energy and chi, we have to talk about how the fascia is a network that travels the energy through it. For example, if you were to be hiking in the desert and you came across some old bones from an animal that died years ago, you're going to see that the vertebrae are separate. They're not connected anymore because the fascia is a liquid mechanism. After years of heat and dried outness, the fascia will melt. You'll have all these bones scattered all over the place because the fascia is no longer there to hold them together. So that fascia is incredibly important. We talk about energy in the body and how that's the source of energy as it travels through the fascia. And I'll be elaborating more deeply on that. Fascia is also a mechanism that contains emotions. Emotions are forms of energy. And so I've had many experiences in my work with yoga students and bodywork clients where they would have spontaneous release of emotion while working on their shoulder, their neck, or their back. And the energy of emotion stuck in the fascia tissue starts to come out through shaking, crying, tears, and whatnot. Every trauma in your body that you haven't released, whether it be a car accident, whether it be a skiing accident, a whiplash, a bicycle accident, most likely is still stuck in your fascia tissue. And those traumas are energy, and they're stuck in the fascia. So a lot of times I'll be doing fascia body work, the energy starts to come out and starts to be released. And so the fascia is that mechanism of holding on to energy. And when we start to shake it up in a way, either through yoga practices or through massage or body work, as I do my hands-on fascia body work, the energy starts to be released from the fascia tissues. Now, one instance, it was pretty remarkable once when I was working on someone's abdomen who was pretty tight and stuck, and within minutes he started having violent vomiting experiences. Because in my experience, he had stored all this energy in his belly and it had to come up somewhere. So there's ways that things happen. The body is a reservoir for energy in the fascia tissue. And when you start to shake it up, it has to come out. I have other clients whose legs start shaking or their arms start shaking or they find heat or tingling when you start doing a session because the fascia is holding the chi energy, and when you start to wake it up, it's got to find a pathway out. So a lot of things can happen when you start releasing this. A lot of people, they're confused when this happens because they're not aware of that's fascia and that's chi moving things out. I've had other times where clients were so tired after a session, they couldn't get off the bodywork table for an hour or two. I've had clients who slept 24 hours after a session because their body was processing the energy coming out as the fascia was releasing the chi that was stored in the body. So that's the mechanism we're talking about here. It's not discussed in Western scientific anatomy or discussions anywhere. But the fascia holds the chi in the body, it holds the trauma in the body, and we start releasing it, the energy starts to be expelled out in many different ways. So another interesting aspect of fascia and chi and energy is that the energy has to come out. So sometimes in my bodywork practice, I'll pull somebody's finger and it clicks, and that is a pathway out. A lot of times our shoulders get stuck and hold the energy, so we have this tightness in our neck because the chi can't move out. So all this energy is stuck in the fascia. And when you release a toe or a knuckle or get somebody's neck to release, the chi energy has a place to go. So fascia and chi go together, and we're going to talk about strength here coming down the pipeline. So here's a really interesting aspect of this. So it goes about strength training, and it talks about how, in my experience, yoga is one of the best ways to get strong. In fact, it's so much more efficient than going to the gym and lifting weights and powering out and doing your bench presses and your squats, because you're working the chi through the fascia. So energetic strength is much more efficient than muscular strength. And I've got lots of demonstrations to show you how that works. So what is this? When you go to the gym and you're lifting weights, you're normally practicing concentric exercises where you're pulling the muscles away from gravity. Occasionally you're doing eccentric where you're lowering slowly. It's called eccentric, away from the body. There's another type of strength training called isometric where you're holding things and your muscles are active on both sides. So yoga works primarily with isometrics, and why it's unique is this. As you're working those muscle tissues, you're also lengthening the fascia that surrounds it. And that's how yoga is unique. You're actually getting strong through muscle contraction, but you're also letting energy move through the fascia tissue that makes you even stronger, because that's what we're going to be talking about here. Here's my muscle fascia model. Here's your bone. It's wrapped around with fascia tissue. It's called the periosteum. And it's continuous. It travels from the bone through the tendon here. Now the tendon is a hardened, it's a little more denser than muscle. It's got a lot of collagen in it. It creates strength, so this doesn't tear away so frequently. Then here you have muscle fibers. They're called myofibrils. The classic gym workout, fitness workout, strength and training tries to do one of two things. Tries to either increase your myofibrils or allow the myofibrils you have to expand. So when you're doing all your weight training, you're trying to stress out the muscle fibers. And that's either causing them to grow or to expand. And that's the whole purpose of gym workouts and strength training. So here's the problem with that. And here's why yoga is such a better, more dynamic way to get strong. If all you do is contract your muscle tissue over and over again, the muscle fibers will shorten and they'll fuse together. And so you have shorter, more fused together muscle tissue, and the fascia that surrounds them will start to dry out and fuse together. So people who've been lifting weights their entire life will be shorter, tighter, stiffer, and dried out. They'll dry out and they'll shrink, and their fascia shrinks as well. So here's where this is dynamic. The fascia is the energy source through the body, the chi. And when you dry out the fascia, you lose your ability to transport chi energy through you. That's the life force. So you become drier and more glued together if you lift weights your entire life. However, if you're doing yoga your entire life, you're not only activating your muscle fibers, you're keeping your fascia liquid and fluid and stretched and long, which creates energy flow through it. It's called the energy of fascia. And the energy starts flowing through here. And that's where true strength will happen. You actually become stronger that way, because that's where your authentic strength becomes. Here we have the traditional way of getting strong, to lift weights, strength training. And what you're trying to do is create more muscle fibers, myofibrils, or make the ones you have swell. Well, this is actually very inefficient. So here's somebody in a yoga pose. they're actually much stronger because they're not only activating their muscle fibers, they're letting the chi flow through their tissues, their fascia tissues, as they're in an isometric situation. They're actually letting chi flow. So energetic strength is much more dynamic and powerful than muscular strength. Here's another picture of a yoga pose. I would argue that this person is actually much stronger than a weightlifter, because I've never seen a weightlifter do this. Because what's holding up this person is energetic strength, not muscular strength. We're measuring strength completely differently. This is the most efficient way to get strong, because you're allowing the chi to run through your fascia, and it's not blocked and it's not fused together. And another picture of a yoga pose where you're actually holding the pose for a duration of time. Some say between 30 seconds and 3 minutes. And you're allowing the muscle tissue to be in isometric contraction, but you're also allowing the chi to flow through the fascia, creating energetic strength. And here's another pose from a yoga experience here. This practitioner is harnessing the chi to hold her up. It's not just muscle action. The chi is running through her fascia tissue, and there's something called bandhas. And when you learn to access the bandha energy, where you're harnessing the chi, it allows you often to float in a pose because you're harnessing the chi in the fascia tissue. I know this sounds absolutely crazy. I'm like confronting Western culture as I say this, but as somebody who used to work out at the gym, and then after years I started doing yoga, I became stronger doing yoga. And I came to realize it was my energetic strength that created the strength. It wasn't muscle fibers I was building. I was allowing my fascia to be open and the chi to move through it. So when you're doing yoga or fascia body work, you're melting the adhesions in the chi. It's a process of unraveling the hardness of the fascia that's literally been glued together for years. And that's the process of yoga, and over again, you're actually melting hardened, fused together fascia that's been in your body for a long time. So analogy I like to make is this. If you go to the gym and you lift weights and you do this traditional thing, you will get harder, you will get stiffer, you will get tighter, you will maintain some type of strength. However, a lifetime of yoga, you'll have a different body experience. You won't shrink, you won't tighten, you won't get those stiff knees, stiff back, and you'll have an energetic strength, which in my experience is a much more profound strength. So the analogy I like to use is this. For 200 years or so, the steam locomotive traveled across this country and other countries at 65 miles an hour. You would put coal or wood in a fire and it would boil water, and that water would create steam, and that steam pressure would churn the wheels. That locomotive traveled at 65 miles per hour across the country. And we still use them in many places. It works. It's a way to move. That's what weightlifting is. That's what strength training is. It does something, but it's very inefficient compared to today's high-speed trains, which don't use any coal or wood at all. And they travel 200, 250 miles an hour with no coal, no wood, no steam power. You know how they do it? Through energy. They travel at magnets and a track and energy. The magnets and magnetism pulls the train along. So that's the distinction here. An inefficient way of being strong, which is the gym workout, or an efficient way of being strong. Here's a picture of the steam locomotive traveling at an efficient 65 miles an hour. It uses a lot of energy to move. It's very inefficient. This is what weight training is. You can get stronger, but it's very inefficient, and there are consequences down the road. And here's a picture of a high-speed train. No coal, no wood, no power locomotive. It uses efficiency. There's magnets and electricity moving the train along. It's a much more efficient way to get fast. This is what yoga is doing. It's a much more efficient way to build strength because it's allowing the chi to flow through your fascia tissue. So strength isn't just about muscle fibers. In the yoga world, when your fascia is open, the chi runs through it, just like a high-speed train traveling over 200 miles an hour. It's a much more efficient and even stronger form of energy because the chi has a much more powerful and dynamic aspect than just muscle fibers. Here's another interesting thing to consider. The martial artist. Here's a picture of a martial artist breaking several layers of bricks. What is he, sneaking into the gym at 2 o'clock in the morning to get strong, building more muscle fibers? No, he's training so he can allow the chi to run through his fascia out his arm. And that's his strength. Much stronger, more powerful than any weightlifter could do because the chi is running through his fascia out his arm. So the importance of chi is really important. The fascia is that mechanism for the chi to flow through the body. We've seen it in the martial artists breaking bricks. There's also martial artists who apparently can knock people over without touching them. That's chi flowing through their fascia out their body and a force being expelled outwards. So there's also something called hysterical strength. You've heard of stories where an older woman watches a tragedy where a young child is trapped beneath a car and she runs over and lifts the car off her. What, is she physically strong? No. So the scientific explanation is, well, she just has this huge rush of adrenaline into her body and her muscles, and that's what makes it happen. I don't believe that's true at all for this reason. It takes about 3 minutes for adrenaline to go from your adrenal glands all the way through your heart and all the way through your muscles. She's doing it instantaneously, not in 3 minutes. So what I believe is happening is she has this sudden rush of chi through her body, and the chi is able to lift up the car. Not muscular strength, it's chi through the fascia. There's all kinds of energetic experiences. A Kundalini experience, for example, when you have this chi energy running through your spine, and it opens up every chakra and every portal in your body with energy and fluidness. And it's not adrenal glands, it's not adrenaline, it's hysterical strength, but it has nothing to do with adrenaline. It's about energy moving through your chi spontaneously. Another thing to consider is the layers and tubes of the body. This is a picture of a person doing a yoga back bend. They're not just one entity. There are many layers and layers of tubes and compartments that are being stretched. So we have to consider the fascia as separating all those tubes. And deep inside, at the very core of our body, there's a really important tube of energy and fascia. And here's where East and West kind of merge together. So in the series of tubes in our body, at the very center of our body, we have the spine, but it's more than that. The fascia tissue runs through the body, just like in the center. And this is where the Kundalini resides. This has been the source of our wisdom. Some people say it's the source of our soul. There are people who say this Kundalini energy is right in front of the spine. Others say it's in the spine. Others say it interacts with the spine, coming in and out of the spine. But what I know is continuous with the spine, whether it's directly in the spine or wrapped around the front of it. So what I believe is that this is the source of our most energetic power in our life, where somebody who's had a Kundalini experience, feeling that energy surge through you, how this source of energy often gets blocked for most of us and how it shuts us down. And this energy moves up and down the spine, and in my experience, this is what connects us to the chakra experience, which is a concept from the Hindu culture, how these Balls of energy rotate around us, some say up to 20 feet out. They rotate around us and they compartmentalize us, and they connect with the central energy in this energy tube called the Kundalini, and they move up and down the spine that way. And here's a picture of the chakra system. It's a rotating balls of colored energy that some say travel up to 20 feet outwards, and they connect to our central canal, what I believe is the fascia traveling up and down the spine, the Kundalini energy that connects it all together. So this is not my most experienced avenue, but this is what I believe is happening. The central channel is basically made up of fascia tissue that lets energy move up and down the spine. So there you have it. So in my experience, fascia is a dynamic pathway to energy traveling through the body in all directions. And when you practice fascia body work and yoga regularly, you're keeping your fascia open so the energy is able to pass through and out. And in my experience, you can be much stronger. It's a question we might start asking myself. I've had to ask myself, should I still be going to the gym, practicing fitness, practicing weight training? Should I still be doing that? Should culture still be doing that? Wouldn't it be better to change directions? I can answer that for myself. I can't answer it for you or for members of society. You're going to have to answer that yourself. So my experience is you can be just as strong and stronger when you open up your fascia using practices like yoga, because you're allowing the chi to flow through the open fascia, creating energetic strength. And the fact that we're still practicing muscular strength, it's kind of obsolete, but no one got the memo yet. So I'm telling you, energetic strength is a such more profound, powerful force than just muscular strength. Now you can have both, but right now, where I am in my life, I prefer energetic strength. So it's not talked about necessarily in scientific culture, but as I said in the beginning, I'm blending Eastern concepts with Western concepts, and it may take a while for these to blend together. Energetic strength is what I am seeking, and that's made all the difference in my life. So thank you for watching this short video. If you'd like to learn more about me, please subscribe to my channel here, and please subscribe to my newsletter and visit me at my website, johnburris.com. Thank you.